Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus here with the Canadian exclusive that was only available in one town in Ontario called Toronto, and thus not very exclusive to Canada at all, but in fact exclusive to one town, and that's why I couldn't find you any, because I live over on the West Coast! Transformers Aveo Swerve. This toy has a huge history, and I could take up a whole lot of time discussing it. Suffice to say, as far as I know, this is one of the only times a Transformer mold has been commissioned by a company that now owns the mold and aren't Hasbro or Takara Tomy. That's why this guy doesn't come out very much, and he doesn't come out very much, which makes me question exactly why Chevy wanted to spend all that money in the first place, but, you know, it's their buck. The vehicle mode's quite pretty, and very deluxe scale, as you can see when I put him next to the Chocobo submarine. Swerve's transformation is also very interesting when you take into consideration the time he was created. This guy, I believe, was probably designed somewhere between the first movie line and the original Classics line, and it makes him an interesting fusion of design aesthetics. The legs are really the big one. Now, the way these transform is kind of crazy, but this part swivels around and then, like, turns inside out to form a really bulky, yet satisfyingly transformed leg. The legs, they're really, to me, they were the selling point. They are what's most unique about this guy, and while I admit that's kind of a pathetic thing to hunt down an expensive rare toy for, that's just the kind of engineering porn I'm into. The arms are interesting, they're just not as unique, and they actually are a little bit fragile. They tend to pop off the ball joint at inopportune moments, although now that I'm doing it on camera, I'm sure that they'll be happy to stay in place. But it's interesting how the elbow joint is separate from that just above the elbow joint I folded around, and everything about this guy, it's as I said, it's an interesting fusion of original movie line and original Classics line, which was in its own way very Cybertron-esque. If you're into the toy engineering, this is a very interesting piece. If you don't really give a crap about the toy engineering, though, then that probably bored you. But that having been said, we're at the robot, and this head design is pretty interesting. It seems to be based off the Autobot symbol, and it's a pretty cool, unique head. I like the visor, I like the kind of frogman mouth guard, and in the case of mine, he also has a mole right there underneath his cheek. I also just want to highlight one other kind of pointless detail, which is where the tires go. I really like how they don't fold up sideways or symmetrical, but are sort of like weird pectoral muscle connectors, and something about that really speaks to me. They're kind of like turbines inside his chest, which can power him to go to all kinds of crazy, awesome dimensions, because the one thing about Swerve that one could hold against him is it's completely unclear what you would display this guy with, at least, you know, up front. He's got all these different aesthetics going on. He doesn't really fit in with anybody. He doesn't really look movie-ish, he doesn't really look totally Classics-ish, but I'll settle that for you later on. Swerve's Poseability is a little bit retro. He's got decent amounts, it's just that, most notably, you wish that he had a bicep swivel like me, I bet, and that's really the only big knock I have against him. These big doors, they don't really get in the way as much as I expected they would. The ball-jointed neck is really nice and mobile, so you can have him look all over the place and be all, you know, I'm commissioned. But the legs have a strange thing going on. They're posable enough. But the ankle has a joint that goes this way, which isn't all that helpful. And if you want to bend it inwards for wide-legged stances, you gotta bend this entire shin. I don't really mind that, but it does break up the kind of solid blockness of his leg design, so that may not fly for you, but he's still capable of some pretty neat, if somewhat stoic poses. And the wrist swivels help too, although it's been pointed out by many that his hand is open just enough to not be able to hold a lot of weapons, or it's open just enough to not be able to hang on to a lot of smaller-handled weapons. So that's a bit of a downside, but a lot of people have found cool things. The British butcher Saul Fury of TFW 2005 found a really kick-ass katana sword that he had this guy holding, and sadly I don't have one. But I can try to find something. Sakai no Hakaisha Dikedo! Your journey stops... Wait a second. Yep, Swerve can almost hold a lot of accessories, but, you know, it just doesn't quite pan out. It's almost as though they're rejecting him somehow, but, you know, that's just speculation and paranoia. Swerve is an oddball toy. He's a really solid deluxe with, a few problems here and there posability-wise, and he's a bit of a stocky dude, and he's not really super posable, he's not really super playable, but everything he does really nicely. The only problem is that the chances of getting a hold of him for any kind of near deluxe price are very slim at the moment. If you're going to pay $100 for this guy, you're doing it for the prestige and not for the toy, I can tell you that much. He's a really nice toy, he's a good toy. I'd even say he's worth $30, but 100, you really want to be doing that more so for the prestige, as I said. But if you can get a hold of him through any kind of deal, or if he goes up for sale in the UK again on a car parts site, or if you can get him on an eBay deal for 30 to 50 or less, then I'd say go for it, because he's a really cool addition to any collection, and he's kind of like a semi-grail-ish prestige toy that you can add for a lot less than a lot of other semi-grail-ish prestige toys. I guess the only real thing is, it's kind of a shame he has no real home as far as display goes. It's almost like every shelf, he almost fits in, he makes comrades, but then, he has to move on, and maybe someday Swerve will find his home, but until then, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus. I hope this review was helpful to you in some way, and I guess I'll leave Swerve to his own devices.